My boss usually sends me vague requests that leave me guessing the details, and this really stresses me out. What can I do to help make our working relationship better?
If your boss is cool and can take feedback, give your boss the feedback. If your boss is not cool and can't take the feedback, get into a practice of pulling the thread and asking good questions. So this is what I mean by that. A lot of people give vague requests, like totally vague requests, and it doesn't come from any bad place at all. They just need to get the feedback. And just getting the feedback is often not enough because, people fall into their preference and their habits and all that. But if your boss is cool and can take the feedback, give them the feedback and show them an example of the request that they've made for you. And then show them also an example of what would have helped you in that place. So it's like, here's the feedback. Here's an example of what you gave me. And this is what it would have helped. If your boss is cool, they'll be like, hell yeah, that's awesome. Flip it. If your boss is not cool, or maybe is a degree of cool, get really good at asking great questions. So we use this thing that we call the question funnel, where you start broad and then you get more specific. You ask general questions and then get more and more specific. So if someone is gives very vague responses, to ask them something right off the bat that's super targeted can often, and if they're like a little bit defensive, can often bring out that defensiveness in them. But if you ask something that's like broader and then work your way deeper, you're warming them into the discussion. Very often when people give a vague, vague direction, it's either they're just not thinking about it. They're just kind of like, go do this thing. Or they don't know what they want. And it could be a combination of those two things. So if the person you're dealing with is relatively defensive, or if you kind of have a difficult relationship, warm them by doing the question funnel. Ask something general like, oh, when would you like this done? And then that's like a really easy opening. And then you say, okay, so the way I see it is there's like three parts of this. So like if you were to say you want it done by this date, is that all three parts of this? Or do you want one part sooner than this and this? Then ask them again, a deeper question, then a deeper question. At the end of a funnel, you should always paraphrase or summarize. So if paraphrase is like the bullet points of the conversation, it's like this, 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 and this, or a summary, which is just getting to the heart of the matter, is basically like saying, so what you mean is this. If you get really good at using the question funnel and then ending with a paraphrase or a summary, you should be able to essentially passively train your audience to get there themselves, especially if they're kind of a student of the people around them. But if not, then you'll be able to manage that relationship super well. It is not at all uncommon for people to have bosses that give really, really vague feedback or direction. It's super important to not get a reactive to that and be like, oh, my boss sucks, they're doing it on purpose, but instead just get very practical. Either this person can take the feedback, I can give it to them and then give them some examples, or they're defensive or we have a challenge relationship. So I'll get really good with the question funnel.